What's going on, everybody? Let's talk about all the moves that have been going down in free agency this offseason. There's been some trades. I got those for y'all. Players that signed to new teams, we got those. And players that re-signed with their current team, we got those. Now, I'm not doing this in no particular order, so I hope you stay for the whole thing. That being said, let's get this thing started. And we're going to begin with the Atlanta Dream. And they've signed Shatoi Walker-Kimbrough. She leaves the Washington Mystics after being their first reserve off the bench the last 7 years and finished third in 6 Women of the Year voting last year. She'll be competing for a starting job in Atlanta. The Atlanta Dream also signed Brittany Griner. BG, the 9-time All-Star, 8-time block champion, WNBA champion, 2-time scoring champ. She'll be bringing that impressive resume to Atlanta with the hopes of getting them back into the playoffs and competing for a championship. The Atlanta Dream also steal away Brianna Jones from the Connecticut Sun. She spent 8 years with the Connecticut Sun, 2-time All-Star, 6 Women of the Year, and Most Improved Player. So it'll be a completely new front court in Atlanta in 2025. Now let's look at some moves from the Indiana Fever. Kelsey Mitchell choosing to re-sign with the Fever. She'll be coming back on a 1-year deal, but all that talk about how her and Caitlin didn't like playing with each other, yeah, all that can go out the window, please. This is one of the most dynamic scoring backcourts in the WNBA, and we're going to get to see it at least for another year. The Indiana Fever also signed DeWanna Bonner away from the Connecticut Sun. After spending 5 years with the Connecticut Sun, playing next to her fiancée Alyssa Thomas, she chose to go in a completely different direction and went to play with Caitlin Clark, and we'll tell you where Alyssa Thomas will play later in the show. DB will be going into year 16, but even with that, this is the veteran leadership that this team didn't have last year. The Fever also signed a couple of more vets. Natasha Howard, after playing 2 seasons in Dallas, coming off of her best scoring season, averaging 17.5 points. She's choosing to join up in Indiana, giving them a new look front court with Aaliyah Boston, DeWanna Bonner, and herself. The Indiana Fever also signed Sydney Cosin. Played her last 3 seasons as a reserve for the Las Vegas Aces. She's a 38% three-point shooter, and she's going to be a good backup behind Caitlin Clark. She's going to play a whole lot more minutes than she has the past 3 years with the Aces. So you look at the Fever bringing in 2-time champion DeWanna Bonner, 3-time champion Natasha Howard, 2-time champion Sydney Cosin. This is how you teach your young players how to win. Even when the coach is BSing, you got champions out there, they're going to be able to keep Caitlin Clark grounded and get her in the right positions. Now let's move on to the Golden State Valkyries. After taking her in the expansion draft, the Golden State Valkyries have signed Monique Billings to a contract, she being the first contract signing of the franchise. Big deal for her after bouncing around the league last year, and I got a feeling this gonna be a breakout year for her. I'm thinking she probably gonna average a double-double. The Valkyries also signed Letitia Amihir, and I think she's really one of the decent young players in the league that hasn't got a lot of time. She's out of South Carolina, as a lot of y'all know. She played last year with the Atlanta Dream, so make sure y'all check her highlights out when we do our Atlanta Dream review. But I think she's a really good player. She's gonna have a breakout year, and she'll be playing with the Valkyries in their inaugural season. The Valkyries also bring a veteran in, Tiffany Hayes. She spent last year with the Las Vegas Aces, and this is really confusing to me because she retired last year. Then she came out of retirement to go back to the Las Vegas Aces, and I understood that because that was a chance for her to win. Why would you be signing to the Valkyries when we know they have no chance at winning? I mean, they ain't gonna hate on nobody for accepting the contract and getting the bag, but I don't think her heart gonna be in this year at all. The Valkyries also signed Elisa Kune. She was drafted by the Seattle Storm back in 2022. She played 3 games in that year and hasn't been in the WNBA since, so this will be a big chance for her to actually make a roster. Speaking of the Seattle Storm, they re-signed Nneka Ogwumike. And I don't think she was ever going nowhere. I think she just wanted to make sure the numbers was right and get that Supermax. This is another 1-year deal. We're going to be right here next year again where she'll be re-signing for another Supermax. Seattle Storm also bring back Alicia Clark. She's a 3-time champion, won 2 of those championships in Seattle. The Storm also bringing back Gabby Williams. Spent the last 3 seasons in Seattle, 2024 being her best scoring season where she averaged 10 points on 48% shooting. Now we got the Chicago Sky. They bring back 2-time champion Courtney Vandersloot. Of course, one of those championships she won in Chicago, but she coming off her worst year ever, so we're gonna have to see how this thing play out. But no doubt she's gonna be really nice to have on the roster for whatever young point guard they bring in. The Sky also bring in 6-year veteran Kia Nurse. And I gotta be honest, I'm not too big on this signing. Kia Nurse didn't really have her best year last year after being a full-time starter with the Sparks, so maybe we'll see something different, but that's yet to be seen. The Chicago Sky also re-signed Michaela Onyenwere. Former Rookie of the Year, she played really well for this team coming off the bench. She was really good in the locker room, and I think it was a good idea bringing her back on this team. Now let's go rapid fire for the LA Sparks. They re-signed Odyssey Sims after having her on a hardship contract last year. They also signed Anelli Maley. She played 4 games for the Chicago Sky back in 2022, so this is her chance to get back in the WNBA. They also signed Emma Cannon. She'll be coming in to compete for a roster spot. Now I want to talk about Sammy Whitcomb. She'll be joining the Phoenix Mercury, leaving the Seattle Storm after playing a total of 6 seasons in Seattle and 2 in New York. Now let's talk about some big moves from the Connecticut Sun. First, they bring back their former MVP, Tina Charles. They drafted her back in 2010, she left in 2013, now she'll be back in 2025. They also signed Diamond DeShields. Although she's coming off her worst season with the Chicago Sky, this will be an opportunity for her to get some real minutes and get back to being that diamond that we all know and love. The Connecticut Sun also signed Layla Lacan. They drafted her in the 2024 draft at number 10. I just hope this ain't smoke and mirrors because I really want to see her in the WNBA. Now we got some moves from the Dallas Wings. First, they signed Maisha Hines-Allen. She spent 7.5 years with the Mystics and a half a season with the Lynx. They also signed Jorna Holmes. She was a 2nd-round pick in the 2020 draft, coming over to help out the 2nd unit in Dallas. Wings also bring in Kayla Charles. She last played in 2023 for the Seattle Storm. They also signed their draft pick from 2020, Louisa Geiselsolder. Please forgive me if I ain't pronouncing that right, but the Wings drafted her in the 2nd round in the 2020 draft, so hopefully she'll be making her debut. Now we got a couple moves from the Minnesota Lynx. First, they re-signed Atisha Heidemann. After getting her in the trade last offseason, they re-signed her this offseason to a new contract. The Lynx also pick up Grace Berger after she was waived by the Indiana Fever. Now some big moves from the Las Vegas Aces. They signed Cheyenne Parker-Tyus to a contract. I like this move for the Aces. After losing Alicia Clark, they pick up a player that can get them the same kind of production. They also signed veteran Tiffany Mitchell. She'll be going into her 10th season, spent last year with the Connecticut Sun. The Aces also bring back Queen Egbo, who played 3 games for them in 2024. Okay, so now let's talk trades. There was a big 4-team trade. There go the details, now let's go over them. In this 4-team trade, the Dallas Wings will be receiving Dejanay Carrington, Taisha Harris, Nalissa Smith, Micaiah Herbert-Harrigan. They'll get the number 12 pick in the 2025 draft, a 2nd-round pick in the 2026 draft, and a 3rd-round pick in the 2027 draft. The Phoenix Mercury will receive Satu Sabali, Kalani Brown, Seb Uzin, and Alyssa Thomas. The Connecticut Sun will receive J.C. Sheldon, Rebecca Allen, Natasha Cloud, and the number 8 pick in the 2025 draft. The Indiana Fever will receive Jaylen Brown, Sophie Cunningham, and the 19th pick in the 2025 draft. My big takeaways from this trade: what a move by the Indiana Fever to get rid of the number 8 pick for Sophie Cunningham. She's going to do a lot more for that team than what the number 8 pick could do for them right now. Also, Alyssa Thomas choosing to leave Connecticut and go away from DeWanna Bonner, and that one really kind of shocked me because that's her fiance. I thought for sure they was going to choose to stay together and play together. Now don't get me wrong, they are still engaged, but they just choosing to work in different places. The drama continued because the Wings decided to put Dejanay Carrington and Alyssa Smith on the same team, and everybody know they in a very public relationship. In almost every other business, they don't want you dating nobody within the same workplace, but in the WNBA, they just promote it. But hey, that's none of my business. Another takeaway from this trade, the Connecticut Sun get rid of basically their entire starting lineup. They got rid of Dejanay Carrington, Tyasha Harris, DeWanna Bonner and Brianna Jones left in free agency, but they do have J.C. Sheldon and that number 8 pick to start rebuilding. In another trade, ironically involving Rebecca Allen, the Connecticut Sun trade her to the Chicago Sky in exchange for Lindsay Allen and Nicolina Milic. Nice trade for Chicago. They bring in the shooter, and they losing Lindsay Allen, but they'll be able to replace her with some of those draft picks. Because not only do they have 2 picks in the first round, the Chicago Sky also traded Dana Evans to the Las Vegas Aces in exchange for their 2 second-round picks. So in the 2025 WNBA draft, the Chicago Sky will have 2 picks in the first round and 2 picks in the second round. But that is all the news and notes I got for you guys today. If you made it this far in the show, please hit that like button. I very much appreciate it, and it goes a very long way. You know, with all these trades, draft picks being sent left and right, our mock drafts is going to look a whole lot different coming up, so make sure you locked in for that. Comment your thoughts on some of these moves, some of these trades. Who's been the biggest pickup in the offseason thus far? But that's all I'll say for now. Thank you everybody for listening and watching. I'm Els for PRNM. Talk to you on the next one.